Chris Wilder returns to Sheffield United as the Addicks face a really difficult trip to rock bottom Sheffield United at Bramall Lane. Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the 15th episode of the From the Valley Flow podcast. My name is Callum Alston. I'll be your host. Sorry for the weird start time. 6:15. Bit of a crazy week planned. So to have this a bit of a strange time. I'm absolutely delighted to say that in about 15 minutes time, we'll be hearing from Andrew from the Sheffield Way podcast, which is fantastic for anyone who wants to get a take from the Sheffield United side. I think that they're actually currently doing a preview and then he's going to come pop on. So I appreciate him taking the time. We'll do a bit of a preview. We'll have a quick chat about Corey Anderson's contract extension that's announced today, and we'll just have a bit of a conversation about the first 5 games and what to look at over the next couple of championship fixtures. Probably the best place to start, I think, is the big question mark, which is who on earth is going to replace Kane Ramsey and that sort of right centre back, right back hybrid sort of slot. It's a difficult one because there's 2 main candidates, I think, which is Reece Burke, if you want to have someone that's a bit more of a prototypical centre back, or it's going to be James Bree, who came on following Ramsey's red card in the South East London derby on Saturday. It's a difficult one, right? I think personally I would play Burke there. I think I'd like to have the extra centre back in, but it depends how Nathan's going to sort of set it up in terms of build-up play. If and whether you want to sort of protect Rob Apter. If you want to protect Rob Apter, you're probably best playing Bree in there. He's probably a bit more comfortable playing that sort of hybrid role. If you want to be a little bit more defensively compact, I think you're probably best to have Burke in there. I don't think Burke's positioning on the goal against Millwall was great, but then again, I don't think most players' positioning on the goal against Millwall was great, and I thought actually looked okay when he came on. We've only seen him for 45 minutes against Dartford, where he looked unsurprisingly about 5 levels above everybody around him. But that was against non-league, and he was playing with the second team as well, our second team. So you look at it, I think, and I think that I prefer to play Burke in there personally. I just think that he's a better player. But the problem with Burke is obviously, can he stay fit? So if you play him and try and play him in a full 90, if he's not fully up to speed, he's only played about 15 minutes in the league. Can he do that? And that's, I think, the question. I think the rest of the team, again, with us, nobody else is going to change. Goalkeeper's under the goalkeeper. Bell, Jones, Edwards. I think midfield 3 probably stays the same. Coventry, Doherty, and Carey. And then it's just those strikers, right? I think Tyrese Campbell will start. I think he was probably the man of the match on Saturday, at least from a Charlton perspective. So I think that he has to start, and that's just a question of who you're going to play with him. I think of the players that played on Saturday, I think Liban looked the most dangerous. But as I've heard, people disagreeing with me. A lot of people think that was Charlie Kelman's best game of the season, and so playing him there probably makes some sense. I've got Tom. Hi, Tom Arch. How you doing? From the Chronicles. Nice to see you. That's just personally, where I stand with it. I think if you could easily make the argument you play Bree there, you also get the addition with Bree is that you get his dead ball ability, which, quite frankly, as much as I think on Coventry has been sorely lacking. Hi Sam, how you doing? Welcome in. For those who are coming in a little bit late, it's a bit of a weird time, so apologies to everybody. It's at this slightly odd hour. As I sort of said at the start, I've got quite a busy couple of days. I'm gonna go see a friend's gig tonight, and I'm off to go see Biffy Clyro tomorrow. So just don't have much time ahead of a very long day in Sheffield on Saturday. I read a thing from a tweet from Gab Sutton, which I sort of responded to this morning. But there's a couple of people in here. I think it'd be quite interesting to get other people's perspective on. Yeah, Tom's got no Chronicles nights. I thought jump in and say hi. Yeah, of course. Everybody's welcome. As I say, it's nice to have people who disagree with me, because Sam and I think share similar opinions a lot of the time. So it's nice to get someone else in. Paul sometimes pops in, and he made a really good point, a couple of really good points on Saturday. If you haven't seen the post-match Chronicles that was on Sunday, please do go and watch it. Get some really, really good analysis, I think, from people not named me. But yeah, I mean, I saw Gab Sutton's tweet, and I thought it was a really interesting conversation, which is sort of who are the three sort of main standout performers so far. I think for me, I put Bell in there number one, because I think he's been the most outstanding player for me, which is not, if you go and listen to the first podcast I did here, but did for this, which was after we signed him, was not what I was expecting. I think Luton fans saying that he's washed and he's lost his legs are quite wide of the mark from what we've seen. I think he's been very good actually in all 6 games, all 5 games. But maybe could have done slightly better on the QPR Paul Smith goal. But I'm not gonna, one goal out of 5 games is not, criticism worthy, I don't think. I then put Lloyd Jones in there. I think Lloyd has looked really, really good. I think he stepped up without too much trouble. As I said on the pod, he had a very bad game at QPR. But I think if you asked him, he'd tell you he had a bad game at QPR. The second goal just can't happen from a centre-back's perspective. But other than that, he's been absolutely brilliant, I think. I thought he was excellent against Millwall. I gave it to TC in the end after kind of having to think about it. But, if you gave it to Lloyd, I wouldn't argue with you. And then it gets really tricky, because you've got a choice, I think, between 3. You've got Rob Apter, who I think started the first 4 games as really, really good. Sort of maybe has lost a little bit of that spark in the last couple, and also can only really play an hour before he's sort of blowing, which is a bit of a problem. You find that sometimes with smaller wingers playing off at fullback. They can find that quite difficult to sort of stay in games for long periods of time, but I think he's been really good and really dangerous at times. And then I think the other 2 are Carey, who I think before Saturday, if you'd asked me, I thought did a lot of running around, was a really willing hard worker, and in Nathan Jones' system, that's really, really important. So please don't take that as criticism. But I think some of the end product was missing. There was a couple of balls that dropped him at the edge of the box. I wish that was Nibs. Or I wish that was a Godden or something. But on Saturday, obviously, that great. I know I keep thinking the Millwall game was on a Sunday. It was on Saturday. It sort of had that fantastic shot, great touch. Actually, I didn't realise until I watched the replay. Great touch, brings it down and just sort of whacks it. So he sort of added that end quality. He's linked up really well with that. I think he's actually linked up pretty well with the forwards as well at times, which you won't sort of notice. It's a little bit more subtle. And then I think the other one for me, and I put Coventry in the end, and I realised my bias is showing there, but I think actually, again, being able to step up a division, I know he played some games there on loan a few years ago, but the ability to step up and still sort of control that midfield tempo is actually a really difficult job. To do that at the level above as comfortably as he has, I think, is a really interesting and really sort of a credit to him. But the set pieces have been absolutely terrible, with the exception of the one that went to Nibs and the disallowed goal against Leicester. The inability to either beat the first man, or he does beat the first man in the Championship. If you cross a ball sort of anywhere in the 6-yard box, the goalkeeper is going to come and grab it if it doesn't have the requisite amount of pace on it. And I think he's sort of struggled with that, which may be an argument actually for Brie playing on Saturday. A couple of comments. Sam, I've been more surprised by how quickly Bell and Lloyd have clicked. Yeah, I agree. They've clicked really well together. They're actually quite different. So I think Bell's really, really good on the ball, and I think that's something that Lloyd is improving in. But he's not, he's not the same on the ball. His first touch a little bit heavier. He doesn't quite have the same, I think, range of passing or the same ability to turn. He's not bad on the ball by any stretch, but having a player next to him, I think Maka was sort of in a similar thing as well. Was better on the ball than Lloyd. Kind of allowed to lay it off. Lloyd has a very nice long ball on him, to be fair, but I think that they work. Bell provides a bit of pace that maybe Lloyd doesn't always have. I think he's covered him pretty well. So I think it's a good partnership so far. I think Ramsey has struggled, obviously, in the last two, but I back him fully to come back over the next couple of games once he's back from that suspension. I think that Jones plays as well, play up to 60, 70 minutes and then bring Brie or someone else on in his position. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably why I would put Burke in there, because you can bring Brie on, and once Apter starts to blow a bit, maybe have a goal or two, and you've got something to sort of maybe hold on to, or it's 0-0 or whatever it is. Just kind of as a reminder to people, obviously, that Chris Wilder being back is going to be a party atmosphere in Sheffield. They are rock bottom, but they are literally the epitome of sort of a false flag. If you looked at the table, they're not that bad. They will finish in at minimum the top 8. So getting a point would actually be an excellent point. Although again, piles pressure on getting the win onto that Blackburn game at home the week after. Cov goes under the radar so much personally. He ties everything up around the back, always drops into the back line when Kane or Lloyd push up. He does, yeah. It allows us to sort of move into a back four when we're in possession. It's very rarely actually a back five from Nathan. It oftentimes ends up being a back six because Coventry drops so deep at times. I think when he's not in there, so he's not in the quote unquote right position, I'll still defend him for the second goal against QPR. I think he's waiting for a layoff, and the layoff never comes to him. But he is sort of quote unquote out of position in transition. God, out of position in transition. God, what a phrase! As he's sort of out of position, as QPR sort of transitioning up the pitch. You see that space, and Lloyd's not used to not having someone in front of him. I think in that moment, and doesn't sort of engage, and the goal happens. That goal is going to bother me for as long as I do this podcast. I think until we beat QPR 4-0 at the Valley at home next year. Hopefully the next couple of minutes, Andrew from the Sheffield United Way will be on. It's a fantastic podcast. If you want sort of updates from the red side of Steel City, which I'll ask him about, they're not going to finish their local rivals. Put it that way. I think that it's going to be a very one-sided derby in the Steel City this year. I guess the thing to quickly chat about, depending on how long I have with Andrew, I can't really stay more than about half an hour. We got this here. I'll bring Andrew in just 1 second. What was your thought of Doc playing behind the striker and Cov being the holding? I'd swap them. I don't think so. I think Doc is sort of a box-to-box midfielder. I do wonder sometimes whether it'd be nice to get sort of Anderson in that sort of box-to-box role. I think his best game was there. So we'll see. I think that Coventry does hold. He is the 6 most weeks. And then finally, and I'll ask Andrew about this. I'll use this as the segue. We've got this weekend Tyrese Campbell versus Tyrese Campbell, which is quite funny. Spelt differently. But with that, I'm gonna bring Andrew from the Sheffield United Way podcast on. How are you doing this evening?
Hi, I'm doing very well, thank you. Yeah, that is a very weird stat, isn't it? The battle of the Tyreses, but slightly different.
The slightly different spelling, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Is it one S and one E? I think Tyrese. One has double
one
E.
S. Yeah.
Very
strange one, but certainly maybe not the biggest news of the weekend, but maybe one that the neutrals might want to focus on.
Well, I think with Sheffield United, there's only really one place to start, isn't there? And that is the return of Mr. Sheffield United, Chris Wilder, back to the club. My question is, why couldn't you have waited one extra week?
I thought you might say that. Yeah, if I was in your position, I'd have gone. Yeah, but you never know. Sometimes it takes a manager, albeit it doesn't seem he's actually being gone that long. Takes a minute to get the players going again. You know, they were looking fairly deflated, so you never know. You might have a bit of a chance, but it could be the ultimate new manager bounce as well. So you'll just have to see. But I think getting Chris Wilder back, the one thing that is certainly the case with Sheffield United fans is Saturdays are exciting again, and it's not going to hopefully be another L, but you just never know.
Do you think that, and this might be a bit of a strange question, 5 games, 6 games into a season, do you think the attendance probably gets a bit bolstered as well? Do you think there'll be people that would have gone, if this was under Sellers, would have gone, yeah, I'm going to skip that this weekend? Do you think that it will be sort of proper rocking Bramall Lane on Saturday?
Oh, well, I mean, I can't comment on anyone else's opinion, but I suppose there is a level of disinterest that comes when your team's getting beaten every week. I think that's natural for any fans or fan base. But the one thing that you have said that's quite right is it'll be a rocking Bramall Lane. You know, if you've got one of your own back and one of your own that's been successful, certainly the first time around and second time around, just about fell short and didn't quite manage that playoff final, then yeah, of course it's going to be a rocking Bramall Lane, welcoming him home. And I think there's been some sort of GoFundMes for some banners and stuff. So there'll certainly be a lot going on. And my main thing, and any Sheffield United fans' main thing, though, is get a point on the table, please. So yeah, let's see what happens.
I think this is it's a bit of a strange game, isn't it? It's a and I don't use this sort of lightly. I think for me, and maybe you'll disagree slightly, but I think your squad is easily top six capable. We'll talk about the transfer in a minute because I know it was a bit bonkers, but I still think that's a top 6 squad easily with a manager that sort of knows what to do with it. Do you think that? Do you think sort of we're kind of, in terms of the table, we're quote unquote favourites? We're obviously, to me, I look at it and I go, I would snatch your hand off for a point this weekend. I just think that, you know, the really big thing for you guys, I guess, is that you're going to have Harmer starting. I think Wilder confirmed that today and sort of seemed completely and utterly bemused that he somehow had not started every game under Sellers.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, you know, for your first point, the squad is certainly of in and around the playoffs at least level. I think you have to admit that because of the money that's been spent on certain individuals. That's, you know, Sheffield United are in a very good position in that you can spend maybe on one player what some squads might be playing on their entire window budget. So, but you've earned that from going up the levels and stuff. I think, you know, the comment that's just come up on the screen, the Hamer thing, I think it was sort of that do or die moment where if you're Ruben Sayers, you're thinking, well, I'll take Hamer out, I'll take Campbell out. There'll be no goal scorers on the pitch. But if it comes off, he's a genius. And of course, it did the very opposite thing that it could have done, and he's lost his job. So, yeah, I think Chris Wilder is certainly going to give you more of a chance of reaching those playoffs. There's no divine right to reach them and no divine right to stay in the division, but you would hope that it gets a bit better at the very least. But from the point of view of the game on Saturday, as much as you say you'd take a point, I think Sheffield United fans would take a point from anywhere at the moment, because I think it's us and Wolves that are currently pointless, and the amount of sort of Alexander Armstrong comments that I've seen are sort of rising. So to put that to bed would be quite nice.
Yeah, I've got a quick question almost from the audience here, which is I don't think he means this as like a math equation, but I guess it's sort of in terms of churn, in terms of the summer, there has been some, but I still look at some of the players that you have, and oh my God, I'm completely forgetting his name. The lad obviously that signed from Coventry last summer, wasn't it? I don't know why I've forgotten that. You've got Harrison Burrows, who we know very well from his time at Peterborough. Was an absolute pain in the backside for us. you've got Tyrese Campbell, you've got Gustavo Harmer, you've got you've got an excellent goalkeeper. It's a good one from Tom, which kind of goes in the same thing. You've got Louis Barry on loan, who again was a massive pain in the backside when he played at Stockport. You've got these really you've got this squad that's really, really exciting, but that sort of summer churn, Tanganga came in, obviously. Like, has that sort of summer churn, has that sort of really contributed, do you think, to the start, or is it really a Sellers problem?
Well, I think on your last point, to sort of start weirdly anti-chronological, Sayers can probably count himself a little bit unlucky of how that recruitment happened, because Sousa and Ahmedhodzic maybe left sort of early on. I can't maybe put the exact date in my mind, but Sousa certainly went early, and then maybe Bindon came in quite early and Barry came in early, but then a lot of it came to the last 2 weeks, and by the looks of it, the recruitment maybe went from a newer model to something a bit more similar to what Sheffield United are sort of used to. So there's been a lot of outgoings, and that's probably played a factor in those early results. The key ones: Sousa, Ahmedhodzic, Jack Robinson went on deadline day, which, he'd become sort of towards the back end a bit divisive, as at least if he should be playing. Maybe his legs weren't, starting every week in the Championship, but certainly a good captain and a good servant to the club in terms of his 5-year stint. So that will have an impact that maybe we don't see in the dressing room kind of thing. And then obviously Kiefer Moore, who since leaving Sheffield United has turned into Cristiano Ronaldo for Wrexham. So there has been losses, but I would probably say Tanganga is along the lines of one of the Championship's best. I think Millwall fans, whether that's a popular thing to say on here, would probably say is one of the better ones in the division in terms of centre-backs. And
easily a top 5 centre-back in the division, I think.
Yeah, and you've got Mark McGuinness, who obviously had an unfortunate year at Luton Town, to Heath Chong, who had an unfortunate time at Luton Town, just to mention that as well. But, he looks a good, solid, tall defender, which I think Sheffield United have missed. You've got Ben Mee, who brings sort of severe experience to Sheffield United and is certainly a Chris Wilder-esque sort of free agent who might want one last push in his career. And Danny Ings up top as well, who will come in for Tyrese Campbell, hopefully not for the start. We want both Campbells on the team sheet for that start. But, I think Danny Ings will score maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 in this division, depending on how much minutes he gets, because he's a natural finisher, not maybe for Sheffield United and the Billy Sharp ilk, but similar. And, you've got your Chongs and some sort of midfield players as well that have come in and maybe strengthened some of the areas. So maybe while the first 11 isn't as strong and Vinny Sousa is a massive miss, I think the actual squad is a lot stronger, at least in numbers. And hopefully Sheffield United have had some horrific injuries. Obviously Oliver Arblaster, who's sort of that next coming through player in a club that brings a lot through the academies. He's missed nearly a year now since I think it was the derby in November last year. So, you've got Tom Davis, who missed a lot last time and is still sort of making his way back. So there's going to be times where you're losing players and having more numbers. I know Chris maybe might want to move a few on in January, but having more numbers for the run up to Christmas is certainly not a bad thing to have. So if that is a long-winded way of answering the question, yes, there's been ins and outs and revolving doors, and Chris Wilder coming in and out of that revolving door. So yeah.
I bet you cannot wait to play for, what was it, the lad that you brought from the Lithuanian league or something? I bet that
Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, there you go. That's a big draw to Chris, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I think he's certainly putting on a face of he's going to give it a go, and I don't think, if you look at Brighton and Brentford, it's an incredibly stupid idea, but it's maybe you want to hone in on it and get your Football Manager database a bit wider, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's made the point. Firstly, there is never too much Luton Town on this podcast. As a team managed by Nathan Jones, there's never too much Luton Town, nor is there a Luton player that he can't buy. Do you think it's good enough to turn it around to start climbing I think what Tom is saying here is, do you think that the manager changed enough to start climbing the table again. Obviously, you've given yourself, what is it, 9 points? Sort of to chase down something like 9 points to 6, I think, or something. So you've got you're giving yourself a bit of a disadvantage, which means you guys must. And I know you're saying get a point on the board. But you've got to look at a team like us, who I sort of think somewhere between about 16th and 19th, I think, is about where we're going to go. You've got to look at a team like that at home and think we have to really be winning, these sorts of games to get back into that sort of top 6 race. Which I know you can't look at with the number of games, but you know what I'm trying to sort of get at.
Yeah. I think when you look at Charlton, the one thing I will say about any side having sort of watched Sheffield United in League One for the best part of the 2010s, really, or at least the early part, is aside from League One shouldn't be underestimated. It's a battling division, and to get out of it, it's similar to the Championship in that you do have to battle, because there's always sort of, maybe there's not as much chaoticness as the Championship, but there's certainly a bottleneck at the top end of League One that wants to get into it. So to get out of it is no small task. But from Sheffield United's point of view, coming up against Charlton, yes, on paper you would look at it and say it's a must win, maybe as an early relegation 6-pointer at the moment. But I think you've got to give yourself a chance to sort of get used to playing for Chris Wilder again, albeit not very long time away from him. But the confidence levels at Ipswich, I think for the first 20 minutes at Ipswich, it didn't look too bad. But once that first goal goes in, and then the next one and the next one and the next one, you saw the players drop. I know there's been some videos from the club sort of this week or in the last couple of days of the players sort of hugging Chris Wilder and looking really delighted that he's back. But you've got to get that confidence back in, and you'd hope that can happen, but sometimes that can take time to build. And if Nathan Jones comes and wants to rain on his parade, it's the Chris Wilder show. But Nathan Jones, he can steal a moment. We all know that. So
I think Nathan Jones thinks
it out, is what I'm saying. For anybody who's travelling up, and I respect it, it's a long journey. You just never know. But hopefully, from my point of view, that doesn't happen, and Sheffield United get 3 points.
As a man that did Carlisle away last year, this is a nice short trip up.
Yeah, definitely.
That's my own hunting ground. That's my own stomping grounds in Yorkshire. A really good point actually Stuart's just making that Wilder nearly became my manager prior to Slade. I can't remember. Maybe Stuart will know. I for some reason seem to remember Wilder being really annoyed about it. I can't remember if he was the one that pulled the plug on it or whether we didn't. And then we got. For me, it'd be interesting how strong we're at the back still, with Kane obviously being suspended. I mean, one of our best players is suspended this week, which
I'd seen that. Yeah,
left us very nervous for a very stupid derby tackle. I guess my final question, and just because we're managed by Nathan Jones and it's funny, and everyone appreciates. I've had someone on from Leicester who went, actually, mate, we were in the Premier League when he was doing his antics at Luton. Anyway, that was a bit of a bit of a slap down. But other clubs, obviously, I don't know if he's climbed into your. Roland pulled the plug. I was surprised. Roland pulled the plug on Wilder, apparently. So I was right, because he seemed really annoyed when he didn't get the job. I wonder if I think it was after he left you the first time.
I don't think
it was just before the first time.
We certainly weren't really concentrating on that at the time. We were trying not to get the lowest points tally or.
It was just before the first time, actually. Someone's corrected me that you swooped in, and we were sort of prevaricating, and he was very, very annoyed about it. But yes, do you have an opinion on our wonderful Welsh Marmite of a man?
Well, obviously I respect what he's done in the game. I think he's done a very good job in terms of parts of Luton, but maybe at times considered himself able to take that jump, and then it's maybe quite poetic that it was someone else that finally got them to the Premier League, and in the fact that he sort of abandoned them. But no, I mean, he's obviously done all right to get you guys back up. You came up through a playoff final, and Sheffield United fans would love that feeling if you could tell us what that feels like. So no, I think he seems like an interesting guy, but so is Chris Wilder, and I think that's what you want at the helm of your football club. If you're the opposition, I don't think many people like Chris Wilder, in the
and
opposition
no one likes
sense.
Nathan Jones, so
No one likes Nathan Jones. But if they're managing you and they get the passion going and they pat the badge and all that stuff, then you get behind them, and there's nothing better than that from a fan's point of view, because you hope that rubs off on the players, and it tends to do. And from your perspective, coming up into a division with Wrexham and Birmingham being the sort of the media stories, and they've got all this money and they'll waltz their way to the Premier League, then you guys need to battle, don't you? And I think you made some good signings, and considerate of the budget compared to those sorts of sides. And Nathan Jones is probably not a bad manager to have in the sort of battling and proving everybody else wrong that Charlton are forced to be reckoned with in sort of the at least staying up point of view.
Yeah. It's just this comedy cracked me up. I remember this shit. I can't remember who the centre back was now. To be fair, Nathan Jones does like to play our CDMs as cams at times, just to mess with us, I think. But they got subbed Nathan Jones a lunatic, but he's our lunatic. That is true.
Yeah, that's true, Tom. That's a good comment. That.
This is going to be my final point. The fourth official get a strong drink and paracetamol after the game.
Yeah, that's also good advice. Yeah. No, I mean, to go to your point,
on it. Yeah.
Your comment on the centre back thing. Yeah, I think obviously Basham and O'Connell have both unfortunately since retired due to injuries, but yeah, there's still that DNA. I mean, when Ahmed Hodzic was here, he sort of still kind of bombed on a bit under Wilder, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets somebody doing that sort of thing. But whether that'll be Tanganga or whoever that might be remains to be seen. Certainly, I would imagine on Saturday it might be defend, don't concede, score goal, keep it simple kind of acknowledgement. So it might not be the most exciting game from that perspective, or maybe it'll be 6-0 to Charlton or 6-0 to Sheffield United. I really can't call it.
I think if somebody gave me an over-under of 6 shots in the entire game, I would go for the under. I think it's going to be two teams, just as I say. For us, I think if you're Nathan, you look at it and you go, look, just go and try and get a point. Right, you go away from home, just try and get as many just single points as you can. We've already got a battling draw away at Bristol City. This is the same sort of level, right? Easily going to be, but no, I say easily because you're at bottom and all the rest of it. But you're going to be a playoff challenger.
And I said before you came on, a good point there on the Bristol thing. Sorry, with the Bristol and Millwall points. Both sides that have beaten Sheffield United. So I'm sure that's another thing that Nathan Jones will be putting on the wall in the away dressing room. Like, well, we've got a point against these. Bristol beat these like 4-1 at Bramall Lane. So
yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out. I would not rule it out. I'm hopeful. I'm expectant, and I'm glad that he's back because he can turn it around. But you just don't know.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, thank you so much. Just to your point, because I like to joke about Wrexham when I can. Thankfully, when Wrexham came up, they may have spent loads of money, but they also decided that Danny Ward was a championship level goalkeeper. Cheers, lads.
Interesting.
Love everybody else that's going to be in the bottom half.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for taking the time, Andrew. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Love what you're doing, mate. It's good to have a few Charlton podcasts and to have Charlton back in the Championship as well, because it's a rich club, and wish you all the best with the season. Obviously not on Saturday, but otherwise,
we'll see you down the valley. Was it March next year? I think you guys are coming down. Is it March?
Roughly, I think, yeah. So
we'll see you down there.
Yeah. Good luck with everything, mate, and good luck to the team as well. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Perfect. I've got a thing clear from shit. So thank you again to Andrew for coming. If you want to get the Sheffield United perspective on the game, Sheffield United Way, excellent podcast. Genuinely, just if you're a fan of football, go have a listen. There won't be more than 2 goals in the game. Absolutely not. I can't see that unless it's them winning 3 or 4. We just don't score goals. We've got Stroh saying he likes to be pragmatic rather than go yeah. Although I think even if you talk to him, he will admit that defensively is sort of where it happens. Score predictions. I hate doing these. I will do it. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Tom, I don't know if anybody agrees with me or disagrees with me. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I know I've been on for 35 minutes, so I'm gonna do this quite quickly. I just want to have a quick chat about Corey Anderson's contract extension to 2028. I think his current contract runs to 26, but there's a club option, so really they've just whacked on an extra year. It will take him till he'll be 23, 24, and depending on when his birthday is. So, Tom, thanks, Stuart. Someone joins me in the I hate score predictions too. You just look, yeah, they mean nothing, and you look like an idiot when you're wrong. I think is the point I would make. I've got Tom's got 1-0 Sheffield United or 1-1 draw, and then Sam's gone for the 1-0 Charlton. I'd be a very happy man on the train back from Sheffield. I'm starting the day at 6:15, and I'll be home about 9:30 or something. So I would very much appreciate a nice away day win. But yeah, going back to Croy, I think that it makes sense to me. I posted about it earlier. Every single academy kid now, other than TC, who basically has a club option that they can trigger. The club can trigger in October. I think Corley was saying that they will trigger it. They will basically trigger it on the first day they possibly can. It wouldn't shock me looking at what week it is, that they maybe announce a longer term extension. I know they've been chatting to Tyrese about it. I know that he hasn't said no. So you hope that there is some sort of long term deal that can be done. At least I do. For Croy, it just sort of ties him down, right? He's happy here. He's from Peckham, I think it is. He's from the local area. He turned down a number of Premier League clubs when he was in the academy. He's a big, he likes being here. So the contract runs till 28. Sam, I wonder if there's a club option. Charlton like to throw them in there and then not tell anybody they're in there. So we all sort of panic when we think there's 6 months left in the contract that actually has 18 months. But yeah, I mean, some saying that Croy is immense. So, it makes sense to do it. I think that, again, it goes back to good ownership. You've got an asset. He's 20 years old, playing probably the most difficult position on the pitch other than the 6. He's not the perfect finished article. Technically, he's not quite there yet. But he's a player that you can see he's actually not a terrible finisher at times. He's not a great one. He's tried a few things, but he tries. He works hard. He wants to learn. I think that he's that there's a lot of talent in there. When he came through the academy, there's a huge amount of fanfare about him. There's absolutely going to rile people up because he was playing at 18 in League One and 19 in League One. But I think that when you go read Nathan Jones's comments about him, he's absolutely glowing with praise. This is not a player that I expect them to let go of anytime soon. He's definitely a squad player, Tom. So bring him on 70, 80 minutes from defensive time, let him run at them. Yeah, I think it's more actually if you 1-0 up, he can do a lot of breaking the lines in the playoff final. I think this was actually an under talked about point was when Croy came on, he sort of broke the lines up quite often. It was actually more difficult for Orient to progress the ball. So when they're tired going forward, you can use that sort of box-to-box ability to run to do that. You can also chase a ball down if you're knocking it long, because he's got the energy to do so. TC has been bordering on poor until Saturday. Yeah, I mean, sure, I don't disagree. I don't agree about Bristol. I think he was okay at Bristol. I think that this is going to take some time for players to find their feet. I thought he was good on Saturday. I think, again, we just have to let players adjust. I think that it's just going to probably take a couple of weeks. I think anyone looking at the table after 5 games and having a panic, I'm not really sure what to tell you other than relax. It's going to be fine. We just need to be better than 2 sides because Sheffield Wednesday are literally a Barry Bannon, Valerie, Chalobah, and children. So I don't think there's too much to worry about in terms of that right now. And I think that you look at teams like Oxford who don't look particularly impressive. I think there's plenty of time. But anyway, I think that a lot of this stuff reflects well, again, on ownership doing the right thing. We've got the new floodlights have been put in now. There's going to be a new screen, I think, in the October break. I'm very interested to see what it looks like. It is the most American ownership thing ever to focus on the size of a screen. So I'd be very interested to see what that looks like and whether they can make it look a little bit less like a molehill behind one of the stands by covering that off. And then just finally here, got position TC plays a striker. He'll always drift out wide. Yeah, he's not a striker. He is drifting. I was chatting to someone about this, which is actually one of the things we have is because Kelman actually likes to sometimes drift a little bit wide, you end up with nothing in the middle. I think when Liban comes on, he stays a lot more central, and I think that helps a little bit with the balance. So I think that's, again, just something to work on. I'll keep my point about Callum. He needs to do more. He needs to score more. But this is not me chumping down his throat. Sam saying we'd like to see Croy and Callum attack in the second half be interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that if Croy comes on, it'll be to replace Doc. I think that makes the most sense. I think Nathan wants him to be his backup to Doc. I think Costello is basically the backup to Coventry at this point, and the Nibs at the moment will battle with Kerry for that role. So I think those are the subs you're going to see. If one comes off, it will be for that. The strikers are very interesting. It gets really funky when Luke Berry and Matty Godden are back as well. Then we got to make a subs bench, and it gets a little bit more tasty in terms of who plays and who doesn't. Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday and Oxford look pretty poor. Just another one to hit the bottom three. There's always one that does plummet. Yeah, I mean, again, you look at, and I'm not thinking them because actually I really like Matt Robbins as a coach, and I don't think they're going to have any trouble, and I think they've signed really well. But a team like Stoke, who start like a house on fire, sometimes there's always one that starts to disintegrate, and then saying it won't be us because how tight we are defensively. Yeah, I mean, I think we're actually kind of going to be pretty consistent. We'll win a couple of home games. We'll pick up points on the road. We won't win a heck of a lot away from home, and we'll lose more games than we win or draw put together. And we'll basically, hopefully, do what Portsmouth did last year. But we'll basically be a Portsmouth that can invest a lot more heavily because we have richer owners, right? So that to me, I think, is a reasonable expectation. I think we're also probably got a better manager than Mousinho, although I actually quite like Mousinho. I think that we've got one that's a bit more proven. So there's that. But, I think the worry here, and then maybe other people disagree with me, is going to be, if we don't win on Saturday, and I think we're going to have Emma from the Chronicles on. That'll be very interesting because we have very different opinions, and I think that's going to be really worth tuning into. But basically, yeah, I mean, I think that if we don't win against Sheff United, there's going to be a lot of pressure to be winning against Blackburn. I think there already is that pressure, and we've got to make the Valley a difficult place to come. We don't really lose at home. We lost our world against Leicester and should have won it anyway. I basically robbed of a point. So I'm less worried about the home form. I am, there's a lot of difficult games, a lot of difficult places to go. And I think actually this year, hopefully our customary 3 points at the front, if we can get them, will be really, really important. And then we got, who would you replace? Ramsey. I said Burke personally, and I would bring Bree on when we take Apter off after an hour when he's blowing again. Hopefully get to 65 minutes this week, 70. Most important thing, yes, Tom, we'll end with this. The most important thing is fans just to get behind the squad. That is the most important thing. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you're going up to Sheffield, like me on Saturday, come say hello if you're around. And if you're not, send your best wishes from afar because you can't watch legally in the UK. But if you're outside and you're watching from afar, please send all the best wishes. It's a really, really difficult assignment this weekend, but if there's one man who will think that he can ruin it, it is a wonderful Nathan Jones. So I will see you all. I think it's going to be Sunday. I've got to have a quick chat with Emma and see when she's going to be available. But make sure you tune in. You can hear sort of a couple of different perspectives. Obviously, we won't overlap with Charlton Live. But make sure you come say hello. Thank you all for joining. It's been a really, really fun show. And once again, thanks to Andrew. Go watch the preview from the Sheffield United Way. Really great channel, great podcast. Even better people. All right. All the best to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And I will see some of you on Saturday and the rest of you on Sunday after game. Bye now.